That's what it was. All right. I'm a fast learner. We're going live on YouTube, and we are live on YouTube. Send a message out to Instagram and Facebook. How we doing this morning, Jake?
Good morning, Kurt. Um, Good morning, everybody. Sorry we missed last week. Um, Unfortunately, I had to put my dog to sleep, and that was kind of sad. Um, Her name was Zenny, and she was a Chinese crested, which is a little breed. And sometimes I used to walk down the street with her, and people used to laugh because she's just so darn cute. Um, but yeah, this is what she looked like. She was an old girl after a while, um, but we had her ever since my kids were about 7. So it's the only dog they knew, and
Yeah.
she was really like it's really a good breed to have because they're sedentary a lot of the time, you know, but but they could also be very active. So it's not like they need a lot of you know exercise and running and energy and everything. I mean, they could just sit there like 15 hours a day and just chill and sleep and be good. So it's kind of sad for me. We had to have somebody over the house and give her the lethal injection. They put her to sleep. It was really peaceful, but that's why we weren't on last week. So we're back. And we're looking to do a 3-hour marathon, trying to get these pages in order. We were aiming for the end of the year, but got pushed back a little because of various tragedies. Um, I'm trying to figure out exactly where I was at. I had um, put the word balloons in for every page, all the way up to page 11, but we haven't like finalized them and made the kind of like backgrounds. So I think the final job is going to be in Photoshop. But I was you don't remember what page I was on when we last left off, right?
No, as a matter of fact,
Okay. Uh, yeah, I think I was working on this page last time, and I put everything in like boxes, even if they're going to be um, ultimately in other shapes. Some of these are going to be in curvy word balloons, and some might be knockout type. Some might be just type without a border. Some you know, but it looks like I did pages 3 and 4, and so we're just and 5. This one was a heavy type page right here. We're looking at. Um, yes, we just gotta like jam through this. Oh, and I did 6 too. This is pretty good.
yeah, we're halfway through. I think I'm starting to
Let's
remember us
see.
saying that at the end of our last episode.
Right. Well, it looks like 7's done. And here's 8. I'm on a goddamn killing spree. I don't need this. Exclamation point. Um, Remember me, kids. My name is the Duke. Remember, I didn't kill ye. Shit, yow. Shkow. Shkig. Alright, I think this is where we're at. Third bogey approaching Duke. That's a lot of firepower. Don't get cornered. They're surrounding you. So, it's been 2 weeks since our last broadcast, and sorry to anybody that missed us. We had such a solid routine going, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, definitely with these 3 hours, but I'm not trying to. I don't know. I'm not all that
Try to bring up
concerned
your
about.
volume, Kurt.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, I was sorry. I had my head down in a way. But no, I mean, life's life. It's I think definitely nowadays we need to be very conscious about our mental health and not overstressing ourselves and trying to play Superman or Superwoman. You know what I mean? And I just don't subscribe to it anymore. You know, I do not believe in multitasking. Um, so I believe in uh, actively putting together um, lists and being very, very realistic about those lists of what you want to get done and accomplish. So, when you contacted me, go ahead. I mean, you got to do what you got to do. Um,
Yeah. I had to put my dog to sleep. So yeah, we have a pretty good record of being steady here. So
yeah, we're not going anywhere.
we're not going anywhere, and we'll be here next week. And what is our holiday schedule again?
This we got.
What is our last meet until the new
So
year?
we have 2 more weeks. Let me see. Let me just look at the calendar real quick. Yeah, we have the 21st and the 28th. So we have 9 hours of work ahead of us till the end of the year. I'm still feeling super optimistic that the goal of me getting the majority, if not all, the pages to you will happen. Definitely, you'll definitely be getting pages from me. Whether it's all 11, that's yet to be determined. But I don't have any. I'm not worried about it.
We're skipping the Sunday of the holiday break. I think
28th.
is that the 28th. Are we skipping that day?
I don't have anything. I don't know if you do.
No, I'm off school. I'm
Yeah.
free all day.
Okay. Yeah. It'll just be a regular Sunday.
Oh, okay. So I thought we were taking off our break for the holiday.
We can. I'm totally up for
No,
it.
I thought you needed to. It doesn't fall on a Sunday, and like Christmas or Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
So I think I'm okay
Okay.
this year. We did get our first snow here in New
Yeah.
York,
So yeah, here in
York City
Wilmington we did.
area.
Yep.
It's pretty accumulating right now out the window.
Yeah, I had to drive the wife to work.
Right. I'm gonna make this rowboat. Uh, um, I'm gonna change this word from bogey. A third bogey approaching doesn't sit right with the long lines above it. So let's make this something longer. What are we calling these robots anyway?
What are the Ghost Riders? The Ghost Riders are him and his brothers, right?
No, the Ghost Rider is going to be a motorcycle gang that that ordered a lot of air bikes from his company.
Oh, okay. That's what I got mixed up on.
So they just refer to them in terms of the coordinated terror attacks that are going on as the Duke is doing this. It's a great time to have diversions out there, to keep the Hubertons occupied. And the word got out, and so the team was just surprised that there were so many diversions, including major ones in I think, like we say, California, Seattle or something. But it's just here in this text up here where we're meeting the whole gang. We're meeting the drone smith and Atisha and Duke's brother Renzo and the mink, who is Duke's wife, which we haven't explained yet. They fired an M81. Okay, so it says coordinated Tuesday attack on D-Hub strongholds, damage in 20 states. NorCal came out big. Which MCs? The Duke asks. So then they say Galaxy MC and Ghost Riders. Lyrics MC, Galaxy MC, scores of unmanned Anon MC strikes. And then Duke says that's the Ghost Riders. They bought 5K of last year's Icebird model, half of them subs. That means that they didn't just buy the air bikes, they also got this monthly subscriptions, which give you, cool features. And Duke says immediately, we can boost their battery algos, give them all a 2x charge at least. So Duke's admitting that the air bikes are being controlled, at least the ones with subscriptions, are being controlled from the central server, and that he's giving them better efficiency because they're doing what he wants. And if somebody's doing something that they don't want, they right from the company, they can shut it down. You can imagine the surveillance and the cameras, they're going to have on vehicles. We can talk about that right now. You know that the Teslas have like cameras all over them now to prevent like vandalism, or at least to capture it after the fact, right? If somebody comes up and keys up a Tesla, they have you on camera. I'm not sure if it's a standard or if that's an upgrade, but that's right now. So imagine in the future, and the surveillance could be for ill, like data mining and trying to make more money off you somehow, or it could be for good, like firmware upgrades, or software upgrades, and just staying in. You could have a lot of diagnostics, I would imagine, in the future, right? Like, Kurt, tell me right now, when our car, right, you drive a car, when your car has a problem, you have to go to an authorized service center, and they hook you up to a machine that tells you what the problem is in 2 seconds, right? And they know they hook you up to a computer, right, that has the codes. Otherwise, you're in the dark. You're like, you have no idea what's wrong with your car. But they know somebody at the car company is probably just looking at a dashboard in real time and says, "Oh, Kurt's tires are low," or Kurt needs a new fuel sensor, right? They probably get a ping, and they're just like, "Ha ha, he's driving around like that. Maybe he'll figure it out. Maybe he won't." But they actually have to go to an authorized service dealer who has to pay money for the diagnostic machine, and that's definitely a subscription. So I don't know. I just got off on a tangent, but they're going to have subs. Basically, the Duke's air bike family air bike company is called Ducavita, and they're going to sell all these air bikes in the future. Excuse me. So the dialogue is referring to the Ghost Riders, who are a bunch of Anon MCs. That means they're not identified, but they're doing havoc and mayhem to the D. Hubertons during this Tuesday attack. So I have a hyphen here I'm stuck with. So I'm gonna hyphenate, I guess, infrastructure better. I have to reorient this. This is where this word balloon right here, this is where I might change the wording. Dronesmith here. They trashed a lot of life plan infrastructure. They we have some visitors. Hey, welcome to Saboteur Comics, who's a regular. And Saboteur says, "Morning. I see all future surveillance being some type of data mining to watch you and serve you ads, probably government ads, like an episode of Black Mirror. Pay your taxes." No, I don't see it as the government, Saboteur. I see the government doing their own surveillance, and now that's gone into high gear with this Palantir company in real life. And I won't go into a whole thing about that because it does get partisan and all that. But rest assured, you and your kids are being data mined from birth with your faces, your habits, your location, everywhere you go, everywhere you travel, to the extent that you allow it. And since we all have phones, we all completely allow it. And you can turn location off, but that doesn't really prevent, like, the CIA, FBI, whoever from getting a warrant and getting your location anyway, if you're suspected of committing a crime. And that's just, we're hoping that the government is following the laws. The private companies like Apple, Microsoft, Google, who all sell hardware, and also I guess like Samsung or whoever, they you're signing an agreement that's like 20 pages long that nobody reads, and they got you. Like, you can turn your location off to like the public, or to the apps that you're signing up for. I think you can do location services for each individual app, right, with those little green check boxes. Yeah. So that's fine and dandy. But the device manufacturers were caught a long time ago building in government backdoors, in order to comply with, I guess, the Obama administration or the Biden administration. I don't know, whatever. And the technology is following us around and building profiles on us. The good thing is for that most people, they don't give a crap about who you are and where you're going, right? It's only if you're if you shoot Charlie Kirk or something, that they're going to look up every little place you've been, and they have access to that. But or every little word you searched, right? But the corporation, they're just trying to make money. So Saboteur is right. They want to figure out how to send you ads, and sell.
That's my biggest concern about, like, if we move to this Google Goggle, Meta glasses, whatever kind of apparatus that is supposedly going to replace our phones 5 to 10 years from now, is that basically you're so, you're already so hooked into phones as is, but for your information and your connection with people. But now if you have this new headset thing or whatever it is, you don't really, you have some sense of control over it by snapping your fingers or rolling your eyes or something, but you're going to get even more inundated with advertising. And one of my biggest things about people going paranoid about being tracked and then them, putting certain ads in front of you. It's like 99.9% of the ads that get in front of me have nothing to do with me. You know what I mean? Whether it's something to do with children or going to Disney World or Mumbai or all this has nothing to do with me. So it's all trying to shoot me and floating around in a barrel as if I was a duck or something. But it's I think the grotesque thing that's going to keep me away from a Google goggle meta glasses kind of thing is exactly that. The constant bombardment of just retarded information. Like they think it's something it's going to benefit you. Like everybody thinks when they try to solicit you on something that, oh, you're going to benefit from this, Kurt. You should consider this, Kurt. Oh, you ever think about this, Kurt? I mean, that's pretty much our entire life when it comes to advertising. But if it's in your face, your physical driving or sitting in a car or a train just trying to get somewhere and you're trying to watch a cartoon and then you get I think it's going to be, it's generationally at my age, it will become, I'll just go back to just completely using a rotary phone with the big cord on it. You know what I mean? An answering machine. I'm not gonna back out altogether.
I think we're all waiting for the day that the subscriptions really work better. And
that's a good point. Yeah,
there are a lot of examples of that with newspapers now going paid. A lot of people pay monthly for the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, whatever, and you don't get ads. Or maybe there's a tier where you also get ads and you pay less. But the idea of advertising to me was always just so backwards, because what you're saying is like 99% of the people don't want to see 99% of the ads. And so it ends up being brain pollution for the entire world and all of our children, bringing up generations and generations of people that have to sit through ads that have nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
So then they ask us, well, would you like more targeted ads? And then you sign up for that, and they're you're giving them a license to listen to every word you're saying around the phone. You guys have all seen that creepy feeling. Well, wow, I got an ad for for dog diapers, and I was just saying to my friend the other day that my dog is crapping all over the floor. And what a coincidence. So it's not coincidence. It's they heard you and they sent you the ad. It wasn't a human. Nobody was spying on you. They were just eavesdropping to sell you things. They're waiting for keywords that relate to any kind of products. And the diaper company signed up for keywords, and this is private industry can do this because we are volunteering all of this when we sign that agreement to do for this companies. And the same goes for walking in a store. This is a big kind of a modern question. When you walk into a store, legally you're giving them the right to photograph your face, and they're doing that. A lot of stores are doing that. Not every store, but the big companies are doing that. Like maybe someone like the Gap is like, okay, they went into the shelf with the jeans, and they spent a long time, and they balked when the jeans were $49.99. And they're they don't care about you. They don't care about Jacobs or Kurt Bruegel. They're just doing an aggregate. They're like, okay, we noticed that some people were a little impulsive and they bought it, but most people hesitated. So 47% of them hesitated. So we're going to lower the prices this time of the year, when the weather's like this outside. And they just have it all, just computerized and algorithms and everything to just
there's also a chance that advertising as a scheme will change because of the basic theory of advertising is we're going to suggest you something that you were never previously aware of, and therefore by a sexy jingle or a sexy woman or a good-looking guy or a sexy car, or something that's going to then make you feel like you're living without it, you then say, oh, after many, many times of it rotating through your psyche, you go, oh gosh, I think I'm going to need that hat. It makes sense for me to have that hat, and I should get that hat before my neighbor or my boss gets a hat, because then they would recognize me with the hat. Blah 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 blah. Where it becomes less about um, suggesting things that you are not aware of, and now that you could become aware of it, that you would want to purchase it in reflection to like information. Like, still today, Google, as well as most major platforms now, are trying to become search engines. They're trying to help you. And with the introduction to artificial intelligence now being incorporated, that's the responsibility. So there is going to be a tendency. We probably could walk away from advertising in the way it's been structured for a while, when we enter full blown AI mode. In other words, everywhere we go, in order to engage a business, from groceries to even your employment, could be just then hey, help me AI system, locate these things, which would then cut us off from advertising until they're like, okay, Kurt, we just helped you figure out what your next task is at work. Have you thought about this soap? It's like,
Well, yeah,
it's going to be strange, because everything that I'm seeing right now and reading about, the immersion of AI is, it's going to knock a whole bunch of things out of play. I've not heard anything specific
it's
about
going
advertising.
to,
I'm just
yeah,
saying the whole idea
it's
of
going to
being
be
data
really,
driven.
it's going to be really invasive, because like the history of advertising was, it really kind of blew up when television comes out, right? I
Yeah,
mean, it was on the
or even
radio
radio,
obviously
even
before
radio.
that,
Yeah,
but television had a lot more, I guess, household penetration, and just mesmerized audiences, the entire country, the entire world. And you had this whole kind of advertising industry build up around it. And they talk about the geniuses of Madison Avenue. There's even some books out about propaganda, and Edward Bernays, the same guy that invented the word propaganda, was selling you, Betty Crocker, cake mix and stuff. And he lived for a long time, but he made his bones selling these like concepts to the U.S. government during like starting right after World War One, when the U.S. government was trying to spin the victory, spin the end of the war, the armistice, into American victory. And and he's considered the father of public relations. So there's also the word, propaganda is attributed to him, because he wrote a book called Propaganda in the 20s. And then the word public relations is also attributed to him. His first big client was the U.S. government. Then he pivots to American tobacco companies, and he very famously staged this like freedom rally of women, and they going into Union Square in New York City with all the photographers there. I think this is in the 40s, but it might have been the 30s. But he created a stunt, a publicity stunt, the first publicity stunt, and he said all these women at the same time whipped out cigarettes, and they lit up cigarettes, and they called them torches of freedom, right? That was
yeah,
like a metaphor for the Statue of Liberty. But what they were doing was they were saying, well, we have a lot of men smoking, but how come the women aren't smoking? And they hired Edward Bernays. Now, Edward Bernays was the nephew of Sigmund Freud. And so he was, he was on the cutting edge of advanced psychological theories, and it's another funny story, where Edward Bernays, like Sigmund Freud, for everything he's credited with, like he's like the pioneer of the psychiatry and psychology.
Psychoanalyst.
Yes, but he wasn't very good at business, and he published his books, but he lost control of them to guess who? Edward Bernays, his nephew. And so there's a part of the story that I remember too that had to do with that. But it just took off from there. When we're talking about, Mad Men, some people watch the Mad Men show and how sophisticated advertising got in the 60s. We're talking about the 50s, the 60s, you had reaching out to children, and Americans, unlike other countries, Americans just handed their children over to, Snap, Crackle, Pop, and every commercial for every toy, and we still have them embedded in our mind. If I tell you, Mamma Mia, you say that's a spicy meatball, right? We all have these ads, embedded in our minds. It doesn't matter, you say Coke and a smile or whatever. So the advertising industry was really, really sophisticated, and they're figuring out people's wants and desires. They're selling them all these kind of like false rewards, like you're going to get a pretty girl if you buy a Wendy's cheeseburger. All that's how the ads have all these false promises that we need, like real media literacy to protect our kids from. Otherwise, they're going to fall for this crap, for another generation. So that in 2026 is just going to explode on steroids.
We haven't talked about we have talked about injecting advertising in the way of like ads in the physical comic book. But I remember, actually, let me bring this up. This was a very, very one of the very first kind of conversations you and I got into. The Duke's poster.
Right.
I think I was the one that made the suggestion.
Easter egg.
Yeah, and it's already coming around. Like here's the really you would come up with a design where it was based on shepherd fairies, the obey, and it was just Duke, and it was this sort of abstract face, and then we already had the pages done. I just did a graphite transfer and then some erasing and smudging just to have this like faded poster, which it seems sort of silly. Once again, it throws us back to like 1999 thinking is, this is 200 years into the future from now, and they're still using posters for propaganda. But we're in a post-apocalyptic world. So
yeah, they will never get rid of print posters to wheat paste all over the place.
Right.
It's a tried and true thing. It's been around,
But do you think in the way sometimes story structure of comic book wise, like maybe a panel in advertising something to deepen the story and or make it clear? You understand what my question is?
Well, a lot of it gets missed, so it just ends up being subliminal. If somebody's eyeballs get it, it goes into the back of their brain subconsciously. But yeah, I remember this conversation. It's all on tape. It's all on those early episodes where we're working, and we say, as soon as the idea came up, I was like, yeah, let's make it like a legendary early pit fighter.
Yeah.
Who and then I guess I just started thinking, who was a wrestler, and he was a hero to the resistance, and his image is put up all over the place by loyalists, even generations later, vandals. I gotta bring up a movie I saw last night. And I gotta hand it to Leonardo DiCaprio. The guy definitely knows how to read a script, and he doesn't do too many sucky movies. Last night I watched a movie I recommend. It's called One Battle After Another.
Yeah.
And it stars Leonardo. It stars Sean Penn and a couple other stars. What's his name? What's his name?
Benicio del Toro.
Yeah, Denise. Yeah, Benicio. And it's a great story. I even for a moment, as the conclusion was approaching, like the kind of like the epic action scene at the end, I thought it was going to all converge like a Quentin Tarantino movie, but the director was actually Paul Thomas Anderson.
Yep.
And
Boogie Nights.
yeah, I'm not too familiar with him, but
You never seen Boogie Nights?
oh, Boogie Nights, right? So I recognized the name, but I wasn't aware of what his other credits were. No, I never saw Boogie Nights. Never saw.
Oh my god!
The whole way through.
God
But
damn, great.
yeah.
movie.
So they resolved. So the story gets resolved, and but and there's some real good anticipatory drama, and some good action scenes. A lot of like car chase stuff, and and smack ups, crash ups, and stuff. I recommend the movie. It's I'll give you the basic outline. It's about some revolutionaries who are like terrorists, and they blow up buildings and stuff. But their mission is to set immigrants free. So they they go into the U.S. Mexico border and they tie up all the border guards and they let all the people free. And they put them all on a flatbed, and so antics ensue from there. And they're there's a real good portrayal by Sean Penn. I would be surprised if he didn't get some like award possibilities, because he just played this character so good, so well. He was kind of like the bad guy. But yeah, people should check out One Battle After Another, and I won't say too much more about it. I think Megatrip is here. 666.
Matt King.
It says, this is of course Matt, right? So did you see this? They're going to try an AI insert in programming advertising with the characters in the show you're watching. I did see this. These are kind of like wraparound ads, where they can put like local ads into a movie on the fly that you're watching, so that each person's version of it is completely different, because you're watching it, in your town. And so they'll just have these kind of like green screen objects, like if somebody's picking up a soda can to drink, the type of soda might be, or beer might be, a regional advertiser. And they're talking about doing this instead of regular ads, which is good for the consumer to have. You have these ads embedded instead of an interruption. I would pick that anytime, right? Instead of having the show interrupted. But they're doing this. I mean, they've done this for forever. That's called product placement. In Hollywood movies and TV shows. When somebody picks up a Coke and drinks it, you can bet that Coke got hit up to pay for that. If it's a star-studded Hollywood movie, that's the old model of product placement. And there's a kind of a more insidious thing that they do in education too, where there's product placement in textbooks, and there's product placement in the standardized tests that kids take. I remember one year, I think the 6th grade English test, for the state test every kid in the state had to take, it had this like passage on John Deere and who founded the company and how it all got started and how it's a big American success story. And that was, I believe that turned out to be paid product placement with these test companies. I mean, I don't know if they ever verified the link, but it was pretty blatant, that they're giving a plug to this company for little kids, sixth
Yeah,
grade.
but some parts of the United States, man, that's like John Deere's like.
Yeah, that's
Well,
like
I mean
the apple
that's
pie.
because I grew up in Texas in my early adolescence, and yeah, it was pretty much like John Deere belt buckle or hats. Hats were always the baseball cap was always
Well,
a
John
big
Deere
thing.
is also one of the this brings us into the right to repair battle, but John Deere is one of the worst corporate citizens in the country when it comes to the right to repair your own breakdowns. You have to go to a John Deere dealer, otherwise you void the warranty, and you can't get the parts because they purposely make them, like proprietary. Um, and so, there's a whole other corporate avenue where we're getting screwed. And this is all germane to our storyline, of course. But oh shoot, I need my charger, Kurt. I'm gonna have to run.
Yeah, yeah,
If you want, you could read. There's a couple more comments. I'll be right back.
sure. Yeah. Matt, horrifying, completely dystopian. Yeah, things are going to change, hands down. I mean, I watch a lot of conferences and talks between not so much the big guys like Sam Altman and Elon Musk or whoever. I just look for people who have been involved in the development of AI as a technical research, like MIT and that's such. And then of course now they're all like basically like superstars in getting on the circuit and sharing their opinion because they've been a part of the development of it. But then the whole predictions. And the predictions, they're all kind of filing into the same thing, is that it's all going to bottleneck at some point, and there's just going to be massive fallout from how we lived with certain things, comfort and being rational, like we would do it this way, but now it's been completely obsolete. One guy who's not AI researcher, but is a great understanding of people's motivations and the way we function, is a gentleman by the name of Simon Sinek. So I've been following him since I was a manager at Trader Joe's and was having a lot of issues with new employees, younger employees being millennials. And I just was not making a connection. So I did a Google search on, learn more about younger generation millennials and stuff. And Simon Sinek was actually the first person. One of the things he just said on a podcast a couple of days ago was that it's good. It's been very interesting with UBI, the idea that universal base income could come into play now, because instead of the blue collar people losing their revenue, their jobs, nobody really discussed or used UBI as a political platform or such. But now that white collar people are losing their jobs, it's now starting to get on the on the docket.
You're saying collar, right? Not color.
White collar, yeah.
Right.
Sorry, that was my
like
Delawarean accent, collar and color. But the point I'm making is that all these shifts are going to affect massive sectors of our economy and society, which then we're either going to back up or go full steam and stuff. But I think the other part of it too is the majority of the designs, and this is a lot of what I abstract from some of these extract from these talks that I've been watching on AI, is it's all designed for the younger generations. they're going to be the most malleable and susceptible to accepting than a bunch of old heads like Jake and
Well, yeah. Well, this
I. Because, as every year ticks off and we're finishing another one, I become less and less concerned, or, concerned in the sense like, oh, I better join the ranks and get involved with, you know, AI or social media or having an iPhone or, all these things that I've passed through since like 2007 is when like iPhones really jump up and social media like Facebook and all that kind of stuff. But yeah,
yeah.
you're
So
back. Welcome back,
I'm
Jake.
back. Right. So there has been some research. We're all looking at podcasts, and we're all seeing these like online presentations, and some of them are really accurate, like historical accounts of what's going on. Some of them are just asking questions. There was something that popped up around 2013 about depression in children, increased rates of suicide,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
isolation and everything.
yeah.
I get a lot of like emails about this as a teacher, about like, what's happening to our kids. They're not concentrating in class. They're not social anymore, right? They're all this stuff, and it all coincides with the advent of the smartphone, getting much more household penetration, which includes, the I'm sorry, but you parents out there who just turn a tablet into your babysitter because it is just so goddamn convenient. And I know the feeling of, you have a million things to worry about, and your kid, you just need your kid to be quiet for a few minutes. That comfort that you go to, well, that is coming back to roost. And the digital whatever, the apps, or the just the idea of endorphins, and just the brain activity has got its hooks in really good, and now the kids are paying the price. And they're saying it's a real downturn on child mental health and well-being, and physical activity gone way down. So all of this stuff, and probably the most telling report that I keep hearing about is that Jeff Bezos forbid his kids to have any screens, and Bill Gates um, and Mark Zuckerberg forbid their kids to have any screens, right?
Let's
And
go
Bill,
back. This goes back, but it's like duh, because like the people who were involved in fast food, McDonald's, and cigarettes, they did the same. They refused to allow family members to ingest this stuff because they knew not only the design of the project, but what the advertising was lying in the way to sell it, for them. So yeah, I mean,
yep.
it
And
should be
we're
no
also
it should be no surprise. I think though, yeah. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
no, we're also like, in this like media heavy environment where there's a lot of technology being used for the other side, for like the counterweight. Like if you look at these, TikTok, if you have the right algorithms, if you follow the right people on TikTok and Instagram, you can see all of these damning exposés of all these kind of people, right? And there's this great one I just saw yesterday on the mainstream news, which was like CBS, NBC, whatever, and it says that during the pandemic, Bill Gates, no, not Bill Gates, Zuckerberg, created a no, I think it was Bill Gates actually. He created a school in his compound, because he didn't want his kids. Yeah,
I
he
love
lives
it.
in like Seattle, right? So so he created a school in his compound, and he said it was just a pod, a learning pod. A lot of parents were doing learning pods during the pandemic. Well, guess what? Pandemic ends, and he still has it going, and he's in trouble now because you can't run a school without having a certain registration, or certain like codes, whatever. And he just reached out to all of his immediate neighbors and got all those kids in there for free. and I think it was only like 8 or 10 kids, but he wanted, and like one black kid for sure, and he wanted his kids to be socialized and have these these good experiences, but there's zero screens in the school, and he's getting like the best teachers. It was basically like small group tutors for every subject. I don't know how old the kids are right now, but that's a big story bubbling up now. And it just goes to show that we are mind melding with this technology. Even though there's a lot of good, it's making us more productive, and you can search anything at your fingertip. All those things are great, but the data mining is getting pervasive, and at some point the companies are going to hit a wall where there's no more Gap jeans you can buy. Right, so they're going to have to figure out some other. I already have
Or
5 pairs.
people who have money or a disposable income to buy stuff.
Right, they
I
need
mean,
to.
that's the biggest fear that's going right now. The economy is starting to stall out because people are just petrified. A friend of mine just did a major art show, IX, towards the end of October, and I just got to have lunch with him. And I was like, how was the show? How was the show? And he was like, it was great. It was great. He goes, sales was down, but I was going in that expecting it. I said, yeah, it's par for the course. But I had people, he goes, I have not had so much human interaction based on two things. The first thing was he was doing live small paintings. So that was like, painting in front of people and, having that engagement. But the most engaging conversation he was having with people is they were apologizing to him because they were not going to be able to purchase any original artwork, and why, and would he be putting a book together, of his art, which we are working on, and and based on the economy. And they weren't not making money. They were still making money. I talked to a couple of them. It's that they're just afraid. They're afraid to spend their money because they don't know what's coming. Like there's no feeling of assurance in our society right now. So,
Well, we're in high Christmas season. I
I'll
just
bet
did.
you'll see a big dip in sales. You'll see the numbers in January where they're like, yeah, we've had this before,
Well, they
you
said
know?
Black Friday was up, but I don't know if that's like a overall volume. That's people trying to save money, right?
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
trying to
yeah.
get some deals.
Yeah.
Um, I just ordered like $200 worth of stuff last night from Amazon, and I just feel so dirty and guilty about it because there's no alternatives. Like, Amazon has really figured this out where they even have this Amazon Basics brand where they knock off some of their best selling customers to destroy them, right? And they just take over the business. Look at this. Case in point, right? These are super cheap. They're really good. These are just black fine line pens like Papermate, Flair, whatever you call it, right? Which was Bic and Pilot and all these brands. And Amazon just knocked them off, and they make a great product here. It's a hard tip. They last pretty long, and they're super duper cheap. I buy them by the 12 pack or something, or maybe the 24 pack. So they do this in every field. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're a farmer, buying seed, or you're, an artist buying art supply. Like, they have everybody figured out. And these just like predatory business practices, which is no news to anybody. They've been doing this forever. But it's just every Christmas there's less and less alternatives, right? And sometimes I take the time and I try and find it and Google it and search somewhere else. And sometimes I get in my car and I go to a mall that I haven't been to in a while, right? Like, we have a Saddle River Mall in New Jersey, and sometimes it's only like 20-minute ride. So I go down there, but you can't find, like Amazon has done all this ahead of time. They figured this all out ahead of time, and you're cornered, you're trapped. So you want to get certain things, you gotta go through Amazon, and they make it cheap. They make the shipping less, but you're better off paying more for a small business in your area, and
Why
that's
is that? Why do you say that, Jake? Why? I'm just gonna play
because
devil's
because
advocate.
and this goes for everything.
So you're saying by buying the same product, the physical product, because Amazon's just going to the same manufacturer and saying, well, how much does Flair pay per pen? Oh, they pay 6 cents per pen. All right, well, we'll pay 4 cents per pen. Just make us this version and stamp it with our Amazon Basics logo. And of course, they go, okay, that's what I'll do. But just because you go to a local purveyor, and all I can think of when it comes to going somewhere local for stationery is either Staples or Target.
Right,
But
they're
when
all
you're,
dead. They're
huh?
all dead. All your local stationery shops are dead. But not if you go to China, not if you go to Asia, not if you go to Japan. That it's huge, that everybody supports their local person. And here's the reason why, because we Americans haven't figured this out. If you care about your if you care about your locality, right? A lot of us live in big cities and we don't think about it. Like, it's all like New York City is 8 million people, and or LA, but or even Cleveland or Pittsburgh, which are smaller. But if there's a chain there like McDonald's or Chick-fil-A or whatever, and everyone's getting their food there, the profit is going out of the area. And if you bought a hamburger from a greasy spoon, the guy lives somewhere nearby because he has to be there every day, and he's paying his property tax and he's paying his business taxes, and so that's your tax base staying in your area, as opposed to a franchise where there's some low wage operators there, but all the profit is going out to central headquarters, which in the case of Walmart is Benton, Arkansas. You know how much money Benton, Arkansas pays in income tax? Because every single Walmart in the whole world is exporting their profits there, and that's why they're there, because they have all from the governor down to the local, state assemblyman. They have the lowest tax rates. It's a tax haven, basically. This small town that has low expenses and a gigantic corporate headquarters.
Right,
And
right.
this idea is replicated all over the place, to the point where they move their headquarters. And in our story, I'm going to have the De Huberton Tower is going to be it's going to be a rocket that takes off when they're attacked, and they just move their headquarters anywhere they want. But
I love it. I
we've
love it.
seen that. We've seen that with giant defense contractors like Halliburton. They moved their headquarters to overseas, which was a real smack in the face. And that's when they were getting like a third of the military contract, back in those hellish years. It's all about, like, how can they maximize their money, and it's not about sustainable loops for your local area, including food, including healthcare,
Well, the
having.
crazy part about the McDonald's scenario is if you go into a strange town that you're not familiar with, like New York City, if you're not from New York City, you'll gravitate to restaurants that are chain because there's a trust factor. You're going to get that
Absolutely.
same hamburger and French fries and soda in a New York City or a Tokyo, although Tokyo's were better, but McDonald's was. But
No, well, there's that famous joke
it's
from The
just cheering.
Office. The famous joke from The Office, where the guy, they're all from Scranton, and the guy goes on a business trip to, like, New York City, and he's on the phone, and it's like, oh man, he goes, the food is great here. Where'd you go? Sabaros.
That's exactly. So it's just.
You know how many people go to the Cheesecake Factory in Times Square, or
Oh,
the Olive
oh
Garden?
God.
They go to the Olive Garden in Times Square. That is the most popular restaurant in Times Square.
Right.
It's the same Olive Garden
Yep.
garden that you have in
But
your
it's
local
trust, though. You can't blame somebody for wanting to spend their money, relax somewhere, and be assured that the food and the service is going to be basically the same, because Sbarro's and McDonald's and all these other places
Yeah, it's
are
repeatable.
putting in the time, to assure, that it all tastes the same, and all that
Repeatability.
kind of stuff.
That was the secret to McDonald's. It wasn't the
Sure.
greatest hamburger. It was the
No,
most repeatable hamburger.
still not the greatest hamburger when it comes to.
That was in the biography and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah,
Repeatability. Yeah.
yeah.
So people need to take this back, and other countries have figured it out. Other countries have bans, on like you're not allowed to get ingredients for food for more than like 3 hours away, because it just gets stale just being transported. Like they want fresh to table food. And the other thing is, if you're listening to this, it's December 14th, 2025. Happy holidays to all of you that celebrate. But this is the first year that the companies are really rolling out AI toys for children.
Ugh.
And this is highly unadvisable. And I heard a podcast from some watchdogs, some education watchdogs that have moved out of the education space to report on this. And it's because they're basically privacy watchdogs, and there's a lot of like spillover with education and toys. So you're going to get teddy bears now that have internet capable AI companions for your child. And there's a lot of bad parents out there. I hate to say it. I mean, I teach in the Bronx, and there's a lot of like young parents, which are not
How
necessarily
young?
bad parents, but obviously, when the younger you are, the more liable you are to make mistakes. And also, it's a thing of like your first kid versus your second or third kid. You make all the mistakes with your first kid, So they're going to have these AI enabled companions now, and it could be a robot, or it could be a doggy, or it could be a branded character, like some like Buzz Lightyear from Toy Story, and the kid is just like enthralled because, oh, it's just like the movie. He's alive for me. Well, guess what these things are programmed to do? They're programmed to data mine the hell out of you and create a profile of the child. And in some cases, they even videotape what's going on so that this can be analyzed, and they can create these large learning models. It's insane that we're voluntarily allowing our kids to be alone with these things. And they've already had instances of kids that are saying, well, I feel like killing myself. What do you think I should do? The robot is not trained for mental health specialty. They're trained to be as sycophantic as possible, to get the kid to be as loyal as possible, and to increase the user time. That's what their goals are, not like the mental health of the kid. They should be saying, you know what, you've been using me enough, you should turn me off right now, and you should go play with a ball outside and touch grass. And it's just the opposite. So this is the first year that they're really rolling out these products, and we're going to have to keep an eye on this. But to anybody that out here that has young kids, you're insane if you're going to put your trust and faith in some robot babysitter that's just trying. I mean, we're going through it all ourselves as adults, where we're staying up late and on a work night, and you're bleary eyed, but you have to finish a couple of more doom scrolls, and I'm just as bad as anybody else, because I'm like, oh man, this guy's lying, man. I got to set this guy straight, and
Really? You do that?
sucked in. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, this guy's bullshit, full of shit.
I leave my phone in my studio at about 3:30 and only check it And luckily for people who do text me between like 3:30 and 8:30, they're lucky that my wife can sometimes hear the ding on my phone. Most times I don't.
Yeah.
But I will check it right before I go to bed. And if
That's
you've
good.
like
That's
texted
healthy.
me, if you texted me and stuff
Yeah,
like
turn the
that,
damn
most of the
damn
time
thing
I
off.
don't respond to your text if it's not in dire straits of a need from me, right?
Right.
So I wait until the morning, which is 4:30 in the morning when I wake up, and then I reply. And so then you'll get the reply text from me at 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I'm getting better about just putting the damn thing down, and who cares what anybody's saying on the internet? I
yeah,
don't care, oh, there's an election or mom died me, all that. I just like ignore it. I'll catch up later. I'll catch up on
we're
Saturday morning.
trying to get somebody to be corrected. Like I just think that is it's very insane, crazy person
Total waste of time.
thinking.
But yeah, it's
And,
a total waste
you
of
know
time.
what I mean? Like if
Yeah,
you, and
you're
then,
you're arguing with a bot. You're arguing with a Russian bot
well,
or
that I was just going down that because you don't even know if that's an actual human being. And most human beings, if they make something factual as a statement and then
yeah,
are corrected, even in real time, the reaction is to be like, yeah, I'm not too sure of it because I'm all in on what I'm
right.
talking about. So thanks, Jake, but let me in your mind, like I'll think about it. But most times, okay, Jake, yeah, whatever.
Oh,
Or it could be like,
I
fuck
love
you,
this.
Jake, just fucking go away. It could be
No, I
adversarial
love this.
very quickly. And so you're not going through the educational process or
I
re-educating
love it. I mean,
process.
there are people in there too. I mean, they say the bots are only about a third.
That's
If you're
it.
looking at like Twitter threads and Blue Sky and after that. But you know, it's just so maddening because they're like, show me one time, where so and so ever said, blah blah blah, and then I'm like, okay, it's only a search away. I know where to find it, so I find it. You give it to the person, and it's like slam dunk in your face, a video of the president or whoever just saying exactly what they were in denial about, and then they just come back with agree to disagree.
Wow.
Right? Like I just showed you your guy in his own words saying exactly what you didn't say they said, and then they're just like agree to disagree. Like belief doesn't matter. Like truth doesn't matter. Belief. I mean, I'm not saying anything new. Everybody knows we're in this era right now where politics are just so like caustic. But it is important because in our sci-fi story, because I don't know if sci-fi writers are kind of like incorporating this, like reality is today. Like I haven't read too much. Like sometimes in the movies it is, but I don't know about like sci-fi, science fiction. If there's this kind. I mean, you do see it a lot in good sci-fi movies. The Alien series is really trying to picture,
Yeah, but they don't
what
clobber you. We went through this. They're not like the good stuff is not clobbering it over your head. They're not trying to force you into an ideological shift. They're just basically, I remember Alien 2. I was in college when college, yeah, or no, yeah, beginning of college, yeah. So I'm just a dumb box of dull hammers, if you will. But my roommate was a big movie fanatic, and he ended up getting a minor in film. So we're watching the movie for like the upteenth time, and of course I'm just like, this is cool, this is cool, this is cool. And he stops the movie like I can't, towards like 2/3 of the way in, and start breaking down the whole company structure, like the whole how the company has been manipulated, blah blah blah. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about, man?
Yeah.
And then he then pushes play again, and then for the rest of the movie, you're like, oh my lord, like this is commentary, if you will, on working class in the all that stuff. But if you weren't privy to it or want to be privy to it, it's a fucking awesome movie, and it still is. Like, that's magic.
Well, they have that in
That's
the Alien Earth
magic.
series
I
too.
want more magic in my entertainment. I'm tired of being put in these positions of like questioning my taste, if you will.
Well, they have that in the Alien series too, Alien Earth series too. And I think the alien at some point just becomes a metaphor for this like harm that's being unleashed. And we don't have
Like
any real aliens.
general harm.
Right. And you see that the corporations do not want to destroy the aliens. They want to analyze them, study them, or they want to deploy them, for
As a
against their
weapon.
enemies.
Yeah.
Right, right. But it doesn't matter to them whether people live or die. They know that this is, an incredible, opportunity. And Alien Earth series, they have a bunch of other creatures besides the alien, that are also, being studied and everything. And that's the priority. You see all of these trillionaires that are like fighting over it because the ship crash lands in the territory that belongs to that is controlled by one billionaire, and supposedly the property of the other billionaire company that did the whole space expedition to go get them and bring them back. So it's what Kurt's talking about. Like, they really make it interesting as far as like, the understanding of the corporate actors, that are unleashing this upon the world. And the alien becomes, I would say, like, maybe a metaphor for, technology, right? Like AI. Um, Everybody's telling us in no uncertain terms that AI is harmful, and that it's going to take over, and that it's going to be ruinous for our kids, and it's like, invasive, it's data mining, all these things. But it's not stopping at all. And the biggest companies in the world are sinking in billions and billions of dollars into building out these gigantic data centers, which is the highest priority for companies and governments right now, as they race to build the first quantum computer. I've been seeing some scary stuff, and the governments, they're all fighting over these NVIDIA chips right now, and they're all like, trading, these backroom trades to get these NVIDIA chips, because these are the most powerful chips in the world that are going to allow,
At the
processors.
moment. At the
Right.
moment.
Yeah, at the moment, and that's going to change. But the chips are going to help create the next chip. That's how you're going to create the next chip.
Well, it's not. It's funny because it's the race towards quantum slash AGI,
Yeah,
and in legitimacy of like the Manhattan Project, and nuclear fission and all this kind of stuff that came out of that. It was us to be first and foremost above the Russians, which were, all this rumor based stuff, that they were going to go into it. But, I'm still in my highly skeptical mode, because I'm getting these flashbacks to the millennial Y2K.
yeah.
I'm sorry, but like I went back into a little wormhole on YouTube and I typed in Y2K, and watching like people's takes on them now or in the last like 5 to 10 years and stuff. Not so much talking about like, going in the direction we're going right now, but it's so many similar loops. I mean, the biggest thing was for Y2K, if you weren't around for it, I was I worked for a web design firm. I was their lead art director in the web design firm. And the bosses were two of them were pretty much losing their shit and believed that it was all gonna. It wasn't so much a shutdown; it was a reset mode, and we had to be prepared to be able to be online and boot up. And I was on call New Year's Eve, which, you know, I was 29. I was on, yeah, because I could have gotten a call because I had a cell phone that would have called me back into the office if they started getting phone calls from there.
You're not even doing back end. You're just
no. We had back end. We had back end. It wasn't.
I was doing that.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, like, that's how anxious, based on the propaganda and everything that was going along with, you know, that there was going to be this major fallout. And I remember waking up in a hazy stupor, hungover, going, I literally went to my best friend's computer and turned it on and then sat down and then uploaded Netscape to see if I could search for some. And it was like everybody just walked away. Nobody talked about it. Nothing happened. And everybody just walked away. And I go to work. I go to work a day or two later, and I don't say anything. And nobody said anything. I'm like,
well, just in case there's some people watching this at some point in time that don't understand what we're talking about Y2K, but there was this enormous paranoia that because everybody was using 2 digits for the year in computer systems, and we were going from 1999 to 2000
yeah.
that we now had to have a 4-digit year in all of your categories, that it was going to make millions of data records inaccessible, you know. And then those days it's like, you know, probably some Oracle spreadsheet or something that was being used for, like, you know, health records or, you know, accounts or credit cards or whatever. And so there was a huge paranoia because of this, and that actually helped everybody get completely 100% prepared. And on the stroke of midnight, nothing happened. But there was people that were thinking the world was going to end and that there was going to be terrorist attacks and that our systems would be vulnerable and all this crap. No, but today's a lot more serious. And, you know, I'm hearing, we talk a lot on this podcast about.
We sure as hell do talk a lot.
We talk a lot, and we talk about you know, drones and drone warfare, and that is one of the main reasons right now why the United States and other nations are on a military race to superiority for quantum computers and supercomputers and you know, these chips, because they're afraid that somebody like China is going to build a drone army and attack something that we won't have the capability to defend against, because they have this incredible head start or this, you know, incredible advantage. And you know, there's no reason why drones you know, aren't, you know, wouldn't be getting manufactured right now by the hundreds and thousands and millions in order to make drone swarms just for defensive purposes. By every single country right now, because we're seeing this is how the you know, warfare is shifting. Right now, there's a bunch of active wars going on in Russia, and Ukraine is a big one. But you know, that it's increasingly just becoming drones that can take out tanks. So why do you even need a tank at that point, right? At that point, it's a liability, because a tank costs millions of dollars, and a drone can do, you know, damage with, you know, maybe a $1,500 or whatever, you know, to arm a drone with, you know, grenades or, you know, whatever. You know, they can arm drones with tasers, gas, whatever, you know, warfare you're into. A drone can carry that. You know, there's big drones that have giant payloads, and then there's little drones which are literally commercially available right now, right? And you could buy them at Best Buy for $300, and you know, it could bring you you know, a camera feed into your neighbor's property anywhere you want. And you know, the question is, you know, how much else can they carry, as far as, like, you know, smuggling guns over the border or drugs or cash or whatever. You know, you can carry like up to 60 pounds depending on the model, there's some big ones, there's some small ones, but now you don't have to risk anybody's body. And if the thing gets caught, well, you're in 100 feet or 100, yard radius. You can be behind a tree, and no one will ever know it was you. I think in the Russian conflict, they say you could be over a mile away. So you're helpless against these things. And so that's the way the real world is going. So in our imaginary turbo world, we're just trying to keep pace and spin the clock like 100 years out and figure out what's going on.
But we're also doing, and I'm hoping we stay on point with it, is pay homage to the official post-apocalyptic sci-fi story structure and model, which is Mad Max, Road Warrior. Which is all based on A Boy and His Dog. That movie, George Miller was very, very
inspired by it.
Very inspired by it. But I think the bigger part of it is that, and for me, I speak for me. I can't, won't speak for you. But my whole thing is that I want to relive now, especially since I have such technical skills. The skills to be able to make and create my own stories and characters and such, to deliver in a comic book format, that which inspired me, that type of thing. So, it is something, because I don't think we're doing a very good job in mediating what's going on right now per se in Turbo Pit Fighter, but we're only at the beginning, literally. Like, we're passing the halfway point in Doom Magazine's #1 with the pages 13 through 18, right? Yeah, 13 through 18. That will be, then putting us into the home stretch, and go from there. Also, too, I want to bring in, Jake has all 6 issues laid out, written. All not 6 written, not written. So the real interesting part is, I love the fact that we get to record and document and archive these conversations, and be able to refer to them, especially when AI gets even more solid. Just to interject, Amazon, I have an article I have to get to later today or tomorrow. Amazon now, because of the Gardner Francis Fox Library, I got this. They're allowing you to talk with your books AI-wise. So then, in other words, you can actually go in. I'm thinking it's going to be like a feature where you can go in and re-edit your books or expand or start writing a new one. I don't know yet. I don't know, and I will inform people down the road as that goes. But the reason I bring it up is that there'll be a time when YouTube will be able to go into the studio in YouTube and say, how many times did Jake go for more than 5 minutes about drone warfare? And it'll just like start, it starts in episode 73. And then for these next 15 episodes, and then here's the highlights of that. Then you can go back and use that information to start looking at the forward momentum of drone warfare in Turbo Pit Fighter, the way we would like it to be portrayed 200 years from now. That's the thing. I'm so excited technically when it comes down to all this stuff coming in, and it's coming. It is on its way. This time next year, we're going to be stupefied. And I just want to put out to creative people, don't be afraid. Take your time. But I just trained my friend on using Gemini, just the free version, but log into it so you can save your chats on, like, for instance, we had some website, Squarespace updating to do, and he wanted to do it all himself, but he wanted me there as a safety net. And so I said, okay, well, then I'm going to double down on the safety net, and we're going to have a third party here, which is Gemini. And then he was like, oh, okay, no, let's not have that attitude. By the time the day was over, it took us 2.5 hours to get everything accomplished. He was enthralled with the way that I have it, I encapsulate AI as an employee, if you will. That's how I think of it. It's somebody that can do something that I'm not good at, and they do it well, but you have to constantly be on top of them, as a quote unquote boss. So just be aware, people, is, your skills are still very, 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 very sought after in what you produce as a creative person. But the amount of time you can save and the focus that you can add by using some of these just free AI things, I'm all in for it, because that is going to be not only game changer,
Yeah,
but
but don't forget you're thinking about what you get out of it, but you got to think about what they get out of it. If they're
who's
giving
they?
this away, free or cheap, then that means they're learning on you,
Of
and
course,
that
they've been
means they're
doing it.
doing
They've
it.
been doing it. They're going to do it, and it's just the way it is. So
Yeah,
I'm
that's the way
not.
it is. But
I'm not.
they're getting they're getting something off you, and they're
Yeah,
getting
but we
something
just went through the whole fact
off
that
kids and children.
it's just not the. I'm not worried about it in the way of like stealing something from me.
It's not. No, it's not that. Well, they might make seeds out of your style. They might make,
Yeah,
any
but I don't. I
any
just.
idea, that you have. They can use, as long as it's not recognizable anymore. They can use it, and you're just helping them, make a massive
I'm
learning
not.
out of
But
it. So
Jake, I am not talking about the creative output. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about running your business. And if you're trying to be a creative person who's at least making a comic book and trying to get that comic book out there in front of people, whether you're wanting to make a lot of money or a little bit of money or recoup the money you put into it or not worry about the money at all because you have a quote unquote real job, you need to have a business mentality on your books as an employee. You have to have it. Just hoping things are going to happen, it's just it's over. It's over. Like, you can't put your creativity out to market and have it based on how good you think it is. Oh, my work is so much better than these people's work, they're going to want to buy my comic book over theirs. It's just not true. But if you can,
well, unless you're
have
amazingly good.
structured, huh?
I
What did
just
you
said
say?
that there's some people that are amazing and they have followings and it just does work.
Well, but trying to keep those things intact, those followings. Trust
Yeah.
me, I have gone leaps and bounds just this year alone using ChatGPT, running chats on my marketing, like the conversations I want to hold, the what I want to put in the post, the titles of the post, the descriptions of the post, the hashtags of the post, all this stuff is important, and it's
Right.
more important in a lot of ways right now than the style of your art. It just, and that's once again my opinion. And I'm just one of these types of people who are always into I'm an outlier even as an artist. And I always think if there's fear somewhere, find out why. And that's how it all started out for me. I don't listen to somebody and go, oh shit, that's why everything's fucking falling apart. Oh, okay, good. I'm not. Nope. If people are going around being scared about something like Y2K, I investigate it. That's why I went out on New Year's Eve and got completely hammered and didn't wake up till 11:30. I'm just not. I'm
I
just
get
not
you.
designed. I'm just not designed that way. In that, and if you come in touch with this stuff and you're like, wow, this could improve this little aspect of my business in order to perform and make more. Oh wow, this is you got to give this a try.
Yeah, well, technology's always changing, and we've learned to be adaptable.
But have we?
The
Are
the
we
app,
changing? Are we changing? And I say
yes.
no. I say
Well,
no.
you got to look at it generationally, and that's why the kids are always, the golden prize, for all these companies because they're
Yeah,
planting seeds.
not
And
me.
what's
I
that?
don't. I'm not worried about the younger generation.
Right.
My concern, let me tell you my marketing strategy. Crom the Barbarian, I'll use that as the example. I've been a Sword and Sorcery fan from Conan Comics, late 70s, early 80s, and have been nonstop since then. I mean, I have not been like actively pursuing and buying comics per se through like, let's say early 2000s for like 99 to 2015. I just put it all down because I was off somewhere, learning how to be a business person with Trader Joe's management training program. But I've always had my finger on the pulse. I did when Facebook really was booming and Facebook groups was booming, and I was still at Trader Joe's training and I had my time off. I would spend anywhere from like 2 to 3 to 6 hours on my weekend in these chat rooms, not only like sharing or talking, but observing and getting an education about Sword and Sorcery fans. And I got kicked out of a bunch of them because I started a rant in 2018 when I was really ramping up Crom the Barbarian from people who had a separation in Sword and Sorcery between the literature and the comic books. Separation. In other words, if you read the books, you had nothing to do or little or nothing to do with the comics. If you read the comics, you had very little to do with the literature. And I was baffled by this, but it gave me a marketing strategy. And the marketing strategy is this. I'm not out there to sell comic books to comic book people. I'm out to sell comic books to Sword and Sorcery Conan comic book fans. And right now, my analytics brings it in globally around 3,500 people. I just want 500. I just want 500 people to be connected with cromthebarbarian.com and the community. 500 people, passionate 500 people. That's my marketing strategy. It's not to make a comic book and sell it to the comic book people who buy comics, like the comic book shop. It's just not. It's not feasible from what I feel like I'm making and who I'm going after.
Right. Well, you're the business guy. You're thinking about all these angles and marketing things. I try, I'm a bad business guy, admittedly. I just like try to make pages and stories. So it's good that we have each other, but if anybody's watching this, you could definitely take some stuff from Kurt, but you might be in a different boat, from
there's a lot of like hobbyists, and I think also in comic books that need to be respected. And one of my other running theories is that 4 out of 5 people who buy and read comic books, probably 2 or 3 of them out of 5 are making comics on some level. Then there's a margin that fills out the 3 to 4 out of 5 that are people who dream about contributing to comics, whether it's their favorite storyline, their favorite characters, whether it's drawing or writing. It's a very active medium. And I think it's also because of the structure of word and picture and how things can be made by different people and have individual voices and be based on genre. It calls out to people that way. And, I think it's just something that and I know you feel same, we don't really like talk about it, but is like keeping it very in consideration, the fan base. I don't think of the fan base, and everybody right now in the chat, I don't think this way about you, because I know most of you, if not all of you, are creatives yourself. And so that whatever we're delivering in a podcast and a comic book should speak to them first. And then anybody on the 1 out of 5 that just likes comic books.
Right. Well, there is, I mean, there are a lot of comic customers that are creators. There's no doubt that comics is selling tons and tons of comics to its own creators in the industry. That's why it's really great to have an actual fan, somebody that just buys comics and reads comics. They go to cons and they talk to their friends and they watch movies and stuff. Because that is supporting, that's the main means of support for the industry. I don't think the industry could survive if it was just, serving comics to itself. There's a lot of bands, that like bars and clubs and venues where basically just musicians playing for other musicians, right? And there's no money being made, but everybody's making their art and everybody's happy. But comics cost money. You got to, the printing, same thing with bands is like, you might have to pay for like a rehearsal studio or something. But they talk about people supporting their habit. Same thing with waitresses that are actors, they support their habit. They go to auditions and stuff. But in comics, there's printing and shipping. And, if you say, all right, well, my labor is just, I'm doing it for the love. It doesn't matter. You still have to get this stuff either printed or distributed digitally or whatever, one way or the other. You got to outlay some money. And that's why we're seeing all the crowdfunding, happening. But, when it comes to, finding your audience, that is something that, that's the $64,000 question that every business struggles with, no matter, if you're selling widgets or if you're manufacturing screwdrivers. It doesn't matter. You got to market, you got to identify your audience, you have to have distribution, promotion, advertising, all that kind of stuff. And in comics, it's kind of analogous to music. You have, there's always somebody in the band that's like, hey man, we got to make a poster, we got to go hang them up, and in all the laundromats, and we'll go to some other clubs and we'll go to all the rehearsal studios, we're hanging up our poster. And then you got the person who's just like, hey man, I just wrote a new song. Like they're not worried about the posters, they're not worried about the outfits that people are wearing, or they're not worried about like, oh, we got to engage our fans and hit reply to every comment. So it's good when you have a mix of that going on, because there, it's a creative field, but there's also an unavoidable business aspect to it. And we ask every creator we meet and on our podcast and our interviews, we ask them how they approach, those different hats that you have to wear. So it's always interesting, and you're always learning from each other, and it's ongoing forever. The medium is changing, the tools are changing, the audiences are changing, much to our chagrin as old cranky guys, but right. But it's either adapt or die, and if you like Kurt is singularly focused in a very particular genre, which I think is a great advantage, to have a direction and to have a goal, and to think about it that way, because you can just concentrate on, that this way you can concentrate more on creating, and you say, all right, well, I have my plan. I'm just going to market to these keywords and this audience, and and I find the people that I find. So um business is the business part of it is in music and writing and comics. It's always the unavoidable, eat your broccoli part, of the equation. And that's why I think cons are great, and that's why I think cons are around. so that people can go hobnob with others and compare notes. And, and you have the audience right there coming right to your table. And you have, whatever opportunities you have for the luck of the draw, whoever decides to stop at your table instead of walking right by, and then you can do your pitch, and you could try to sell your wares, and and all of the rest of the time where it's not a con, you're trying to create pages that catch these people's eyes and slow them down, from walking past. So it's not like it's no different from any TikToker who's like, don't scroll past, watch my TikTok, and like, nope, sorry, I'm scrolling back. But there's something that you see in that first 2 seconds, if it's an attractive girl, or if it's like somebody who's like, got a chef's hat on, then someone's like, oh, maybe this is a recipe, or maybe this is. I mean, one thing that goes back to our discussion from before about advertising and marketing in the digital era, is that you are seeing a lot of makers and creators, right now, that are cultivating their audiences, whatever they're doing. I don't care if they're dancing upside down on their head. You have women, like taking off all their clothes on OnlyFans, and you have all these different people that are finding their audiences. But the platforms of TikTok and Instagram in particular, I don't know if there's others like it, like Snapchat or wherever, where you just like, coming across different things and you're just scrolling and you're just like browsing. But I've noticed that it's really, really moved into people hawking things. And maybe it's just a little bit more this time of year. But, gift ideas. And, Instagram has been a place where I've seen some very interesting items that do seem tailored to me, right? Like I'm into art, comics, whatever my algorithms are. So you see this projector thing. It's like a little screen that they're selling, and you put it like on a gooseneck mount, and you're looking down at your table at an image, but you can also see the piece of paper and you're drawing. So you're projecting an image onto a screen that's also letting you visualize your work, and you can trace perfectly at that point a reference. And they show you an ad of somebody doing it, and I think it's named after some great artist, so it's called like Michelangelo or Rembrandt or Da Vinci or something. But it seems like a great product to have, and I even was
You order
flirting.
one?
What's that?
Did you order one?
I didn't, but I was thinking about getting one at some point. I think I am going to get one at one point, especially as an art teacher and bringing it to the classroom. I don't know why I didn't. Maybe it was like too much money or something, but but that is so that's something where it's like, and you can see all these kind of like gadgets and things on Instagram and TikTok. And it might remind you of like as seen on TV type products, like, oh, this will help you, so you don't fog up your shower. And wait, there's more. It also has a soap dish with a suction cup, at the same time. So
No way.
right, and so there's always been this kind of like thing about these little handy dandy conveniences, right? But on TikTok there's a much broader range of products, and sometimes it's some innovators that really came up with something, and they're trying to be the first mover online and sell their own stuff on through TikTok. Sometimes it has to do with like saving the planet. So you might get your ecologically friendly laundry, detergent, sheets. Like I saw this great one and I watched it all the way through. I didn't buy the damn things, but you know, but this was just my first contact. I might buy it on the fourth time through,
Well,
or
that's That's advertising.
And it's like those big containers of laundry detergent that you throw out, and they're giant plastic, tubs that go into your recycle, and they take up half the recycle, and they just go into a landfill, and it costs like so much money to make them, and they're wasteful, and they don't biodegrade for 10,000 years and all that. Well, instead, you could just buy these dryer sheets or these detergent sheets, and they're eco-friendly, and it saves the whales and saves the turtles and all that, and it makes sense, to buy something like that. So I think they are going to be selling a lot of them, and it's just taking the time to get the message to sink through, to people. And you're seeing lots of different stuff like that. Like I don't really get into fashion too much. Obviously, I'm a bum, but Whatnot is being like taken over. I don't know about taken over, but Whatnot is really thriving with these secondhand vintage people that were selling on, like used clothes and handbags, books. Sneakers are huge. Like the whole used sneaker market is huge if the sneakers are in good shape. But there's this whole thing of people selling vintage stuff, and it's just like it's like a digital yard sale, but with all these clothes that somebody can get, and they're bypassing apps like Poshmark and Etsy and stuff, to just sell direct. So there's a lot of people out there selling a lot of things. Sometimes they're just scratchers, that are just picking up a couple of bucks, and sometimes they're day job people that are making trying to make a go of it. I guess it all depends on your volume and your income and everything, but um, it's a little more interesting than seeing your friend, balancing a plate on his head, and then seeing an ad for Budweiser, or seeing an ad for some distant product, some just corporate product. It's nicer to see this kind of handmade, DIY revolution, and it's also probably a little more suited towards your
Well, it's why people complain about it. The reason most people are in the frame of mind of complaining about these platforms or any of these things is because they never they gave it a shot themselves, and it didn't perform for them. It didn't make them rich. It did not make them famous, and so forth. And then they end up they end up becoming so disenfranchised that they just fall into the haters crew. Oh, I'm just gonna piss on this, poo poo this, and everything like that.
Well, yeah,
You know, one of one of
no
the
one's catering to them. No one's listening to them. These apps are just going
I
ahead.
disagree with you because that's where all this noise nonsense, all this, you know, people being upset to the point that they then find other people to join them in, or they just find a Reddit thread where they go and vent, and then all of a sudden you're the smartest person on that Reddit thread. Now you're the king of this Reddit thread, and then people coming over to your TikTok and everything like that. It's all about communities, microcosms, and stuff.
Yeah,
It's
but it's also, yeah, but what you talk. Let's say you hit pay dirt, and you put up a post, and you're just you being a curmudgeon, or you're complaining about something, or you're informing, or whatever, and let's say you get like 500,000 views. Now what?
correct.
If you aren't ready to
Correct.
pivot that into
Correct.
some kind of payday, then
Yep.
all right, maybe some people will remember your name for like 3 months, but
Wow, that'd be awesome, wouldn't it? Somebody remember you for 3 fucking months instead of 3 fucking minutes or
I
hours.
mean, we have to talk. We do have to talk about mergers and acquisitions, because right now in the news, um, I mean, we're talking about TikTok, and what a hot potato this is. The U.S. government is stepping in because it's owned by Chinese government, or Chinese nationals, and whatever, and they're like, no, that's a security risk, because they're peering into too many American lives and habits, and they're setting the cultural tone. They have too much input, so it's a national security risk, right? And so the U.S. government has been proposing for years now to force a sale to U.S. based owners, And the names that have come up are the same future trillionaires, that we're talking about for all these other hostile acquisitions. Specifically Larry Ellison from Oracle. I think he's the biggest bidder, poised to buy TikTok right now, and he's also the bidder for Warner Brothers. And this is big in the news right now because the two I guess competing offers are this consortium of like Larry, the Oracle guy, versus the Netflix guy, which are both billionaires. They're both, oligarchs as far as I'm concerned. And they say that the Warner Brothers merger with either Netflix or the other group is Paramount. Like Larry Ellison and his son just bought Paramount, which included CBS, 60 Minutes, a lot of a lot of these media properties. And it's not good when competitors consolidate. It's not good for the audience. It's not good for the user, the listener. Why? Because right now, Warner Brothers is one of the biggest, intellectual property holders. They're one of the biggest movie
Can I
studios.
stop you? Can I stop you for a second? I don't give a shit what you're going down the rabbit hole on, because simply this: I don't watch anything on those platforms. I am not emotionally connected to any of it. And it's and when I hear in the rant from somebody about these oligarchs and these media people controlling all of this content, let them have it, because I believe this wholeheartedly. Individuals like ourselves can build our own structure and fan base and make things happen. We don't need them. I don't need them. Will probably till the day I die not worry about them at all for whatever they inclusively hold in content, because they don't speak to me. And I don't believe I'm the only one that feels this way. And I don't even have an adversarial gut reaction to all of this. All it does is it brings a light to myself that says, Kurt, you're going to get your 500 Sword and Sorcery fans that are going to fall in love with not only my Crom, but all the other contributors that work in bringing their version of Crom to the community. I'm not saying I have any structure in trying to create my own platform, if you will. But one of my notes that I come over when I pass over every month when I sit down and review my business, one of the notes is, can you afford, it's in bold, it's like number 7 on the top 10 things that I have to keep an eye out. Can you afford your own video website? In other words, can Crom afford the space in order to upload 2 or 3 hour long video presentations? And then I go and check, and then I find out, it's not that I'm not even close. It's just that the margin of what I would have to spend each month and the amount of people that I have visiting the website and what they've been tuned to, it just doesn't intersect. But that's a major goal for me, is to have my website have or original based content in the way of video or podcast that's only found on cromthebarbarian.com.
Right. Well, Kurt is kind of addressing, how this could affect indie creators. I am mostly talking about mainstream culture, like Kurt's talking about like this.
But I am a part of mainstream culture. I'm not going to probably end up being the biggest voice in it, but all us little grains of sand on the beach and all of us drops of water in the ocean make those beaches and oceans. So if these things all become paywalled and, oh no, I can't see the new Game of Thrones series because I don't want to pay the $7.99. So what? Then just read a book. Find more comic books to read. Make your own videos. Like, get the fuck out of it. Get away from it. Get away from being worried about they're gonna pay. They're gonna control your favorite Star Wars. Oh my god, man, they fuck Star Wars so many ways upside down. Are gonna still go into it. So anybody that wants to have a conversation with me, somebody came up to me. It wasn't only me at Thanksgiving. It was me and another individual, a younger person, and they're like, "Oh, hey, about that." So I just walked away. I need another glass of wine.
Well, I'm
not gonna waste my breath.
There are plenty of Trekkies and Star Warsies out there that are buying every little product. I mean, they spent more for Star Wars,
and they should be worried. I'm not. I'm just not going to go down that. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole and be worried.
Well, talk. So just talking about like controlling, culture, U.S. culture, a big part of it. Warner Brothers Discovery owns HBO. Warner Brothers Pictures, one of the biggest movie studios historically, the Cartoon Network, New Line Cinema, DC Comics, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, everybody, Harry Potter, Looney Tunes.
Don't care about any of this, Jake. Don't care about one of these.
Lord of the Rings. So
don't care. Don't care. I've seen them.
Right. I mean,
I'd rather read the book, which I have copies of.
This means if it goes to the Paramount people instead of the Netflix people, that means the Saudis are going to be part owners. They're going to dismantle, CNN, and they have TNT, Food Network, all this kind of stuff. It's all just like all these little cultural things that they will now control. And there's a lot of people. I mean, there's legally, they're saying this is just illegal because it's antitrust. You can't let a competitor buy another competitor. It doesn't help the customer. It takes away competition, and they can just raise all their prices and choke everybody out. But this is just passing through the news right now. A couple weeks ago, it was the other merger that we were talking about, which was the CBS. Paramount swallowed up CBS. Now they're trying to swallow up Warner Brothers. So, in our story, the DeHuberton family, we kind of hit the fast forward button, and the DeHuberton family consolidates everything. Like, not just like, the entertainment industry, but everything. Like, the food, the weapons, the life plan is going to be, from cradle to grave, every interaction that anybody has with a for-profit, business, all in one, so that, it'll all just be covered if you're on the life plan. And if you're not, then you are a rebel. And, and our story gets to the point where you're going to have to move to a different area. You can't coexist anymore. And so, I'm just, the reason why I'm going over all this stuff, it isn't to try to convince Kurt to do something with his business model. It is to kind of engage our thinking and our listeners' thinking in, the sci-fi model, where you take something that's going on in the real world around us now, you exaggerate it or you illustrate it, and then you try to build in some kind of message of alert or warning or awareness that wasn't there before. And I think all great sci-fi has done that, including the Road Warrior and the Mad Max. So yeah, that's why I mentioned this, but it's also to kind of timestamp this because Kurt, you're being very productive right now drawing, and I'm being very productive right now doing the word balloons. I'm on page 10 of 11 right now, so I'm cutting through. I've cut through two and a half pages already, and we're just talking here. We're talking. We don't always agree on what to talk about, or or the different takes on it. But that's what's good, to have two different perspectives on it. We also have our friends online. Saboteur Comics is with us, talking about the AI fighters are what's scary, like the F-47 drone support fighters. Yeah, some people are starting to think about this in the real world a little bit. It is scary. It does make you like paranoid and tinfoily,
The biggest difference between you and I was thinking about this over our 2 weeks, um, is you
Yeah.
primarily, and if I'm speaking out of line, then of course correct me, Jake. But I go creative to escape this world.
Right, right, right.
I have no interest in this world when I go into my studio. Other
Yeah,
than my business, I am very practical about it, or I try to be as practical as possible. You, on the other hand, as you just stated, you have, and it's not only the socio political landscape. You're a huge science nerd.
yes.
And you have brought this up many a times where you're driving home and you're just listening to people talk about quantum mechanics and theory and so on and so forth.
Doing it
So
this week.
I'm
Yep.
I'm not exactly, but your creative process is an outlet for what you are experiencing as a human being right now, and then you place it 200 years in the future. Am I am
Yeah,
I am I correct?
exactly. And
Yeah, yeah, and
every
that's
time
why
I
we're so
learn,
different.
yeah. So, but it's all it's also social politics, but it's also science. And
Oh
every
yeah,
time I learn something, I want to bring it into the story, and I want to make other people aware that like here's an example. This week I was learning about um optics, like fiber optics. People might not know how fiber optics have changed our lives. Broadband, the idea of broadband, we used to dial up modems, you know right. So our all of our phones and our wireless is all non-wires, but everything that is on a wire now is incredibly, like infinitely increased the capacity because of fiber optics. Fiber optics are, photons of light that are being streamed in a pattern, and that pattern gets reassembled to make the images that you're seeing on your screen, or the audio that you're hearing on your headphones or whatever. But inside these cables that the cable companies have run underneath your house and into your house is a not just one strand where the light, the signal is coming in. It is hundreds and thousands of strands of, that have the capability for hundreds and thousands of signals. And the only question is, how are you going to push it through on the sending end, and how are you going to receive it and translate it on the receiving end? The bottleneck is not the fiber optic cable itself. The fiber optic cable. So and if you go through the history of this, it's amazing, because it's only been in our lifetimes, that this, we've gone from copper wire in our house, giving us, like, our phone, and giving us our internet, our dial-up internet, to what we have now. They've sliced and diced the idea of a single strand of fiber optics, so that you can because photons of light are so small on the quantum level. So you can not only have hundreds of different signals going through at the same exact time, because they're just like, taking up a portion of the cable. It's like it divides itself up into these like lines, into these like paths. But then you could also filter it so that there's a red light and a green light and a blue light, and they're all completely separate. And you have, so whatever you were pumping through, now you can pump it through 3 times more. And then you can do it 10 times more using pulsing and different kinds of translations. So it's pretty amazing. So then the question is, well, where is it going? So that's where we've just gone in the last 20 to 30 years. Where is it going after this? And it's just going to be incredible, because if you're into quantum theory at all, quantum physics, the photon, is really where it's at. Like photonic physics, photonic quantum physics. and what science is, where we're just at right now, it's just at the dawn of understanding, how this could be used for different applications. So, including the quantum computers, but also weapon systems and communication, encryption, everything. So I'm really excited, to learn all this kind of stuff. And, I haven't necessarily brought it into the story yet in any particular storyline, but the quantum druids are going to be these 12 couples that I've already set up, that all I have to do is every time I learn something now, like about optics, and also like this optic lens design is really interesting, because the lenses is what's used on each end of the fiber optic cable to translate, the signal into, language coding, content. So I'm going to have, I think Sixto and Antria are going to be two of our quantum druid characters that are going to be, I'm just, all right, these are going to be my fiber optic, or my photonic, my quantum photonics geniuses. And they're going to invent, some groundbreaking thing. And of course, it's all going to end up where all the quantum druids are assassinated, and and all their research is stolen by the Huberton aligned forces. But learning about the science of it is just, the fun part for me. I'm totally nerding out, and I love to be able to turn around and explain, like, the 2% of it that I remember off the dome to on the podcast, to give you a sense of because
Quantum.
science is very exciting. Science, where
I
science
agree.
is going right now, is very, very, very
And
exciting.
especially with quantum mechanics and theory, because like when you go down that rabbit hole
Yeah,
on YouTube, um, I do get scared, like it because it's incomprehensible to an idiot like me.
yeah,
But the way they talk about it in like as it emerges and then becomes highly interconnected uh, uh, in our world. It always brings me back to the Foreman Project, Colossus the Foreman
yeah.
Project, which is the movie where they throw this supercomputer online in order to go into everything in order to make our lives easier. Now, I don't fall into the AGI sentient being side of it, AI and all that kind of. I don't fall into that. What I do fall into when it becomes fear for me, where quantum computers become so integrated with AI, in making our lives easier, is will it be easier? Because you can't get a human on the phone when you have something go wrong. You know what I mean? Or God forbid, as we're getting older, and this is where it really does come down to reality, is being ill, or my loved one being ill, and going through the health insurance companies and getting denied and
Oh,
trying
it's
to
all
get
moving.
you know what I mean, like, and if
All
that's all
moving.
backed up into machines, and those machines are all they have walls that you have to go. It's just it makes you go like, well, why the fuck? Like, why am I even bothering? You know what I
Oh,
mean? Like,
it's insidious, and all the healthcare is moving over to AI. There's some healthcare companies that make money as a middleman between your doctor and you.
yeah,
And there's some of these big, like, HMOs that make money by trying to convince you, just to not get care. You know, like they deny claims, and they. So here's the really insidious thing that they do, right? Because when you're on a call, they're noticing your tone of voice. If you're stressed out, they can
oh yeah,
tell. The
yeah,
kind of thing you're saying. If you're cursing and you're hostile, well,
yep,
guess what? You get a flag. You get a certain flag,
yeah,
and they're like, well, I'm gonna put this guy on hold for 45 minutes so he can calm the fuck down, or maybe he'll just explode more. Sometimes the call gets dropped. That's not
yep,
always an accident.
yep,
So what's happening is the AI is slicing and dicing us all, depending on like, oh wow, they're busy. They're on their break, in their fast food job right now, so they're
Yeah.
not going to be able to get this done. And we got them right where we want them. All this kind of stuff is happening, but it's really a matter of, well,
Psychological
we
warfare.
profile a third of our customers to figure out that they would rather they'd rather eat it and not get reimbursed for this charge. They'd rather pay the $600 or whatever it is than fight. And so now we just have to make that happen, as opposed to the other guy that's going to call the Better Business Bureau and call your congressman, or what, or
Right.
make waves. Same thing with the phone company, same thing with the gas company. So all these companies, whenever it's connected to a giant big corporate entity, they can hire out these new, we used to call it phone automation. Press 3 if you want, this, press 4 if you want that. Now it's still there, but it's combined with this, AI stuff. Do you know that when you think you're on hold and you're talking to your wife, you know that they're completely data mining all that information, right? Like, oh, they're angry, they're mad. Oh, look, he just admitted, like, hey, hon, I'm on hold right now, but I'm trying to see if I can get 2 free months out of this, right? They just heard that. You think you're on hold, but it might not be a human listening, but they're whatever they can glean, to help them make more money. You bet they're doing it because they have the capability, and the capabilities are getting more and more advanced. It's just they had this stuff non-publicly for many, many years. Kurt, I got to show you something. Like, here's a good illustration, because sometimes I'm just rattling off. I get it. So we both are. But I got to show you something in my photos right now, right? And let's just do some eye candy, because I'm a big fan of Jack King Kirby. And watch this. So I took one of his big blacklight posters, and I just stuck it into, I think, Grok or Sora or one of these things. And I was just like, no, not even any instructions, just animate it, right? And I think they add some music to it, right? So where am I going with this, right? Oh, big deal. Jake just put in a Kirby picture into AI and got it moving. Like, now he's walking for like 5 seconds. Big deal, right? Where am I going with this? This capability, right, is controllable for the insiders, where they can take a whole Hollywood script for a cartoon and just have the computer do everything now. And you just got to put in the characters. You put in the key, some key scenes, maybe very little, but it's not available to us to do that, right? To just put a script in the one end of the machine and then press crunch, and then, I mean, the crunching that it does might be like 3 days. I've been to animation studios where the rendering, after they're converting everything from down to pixels, takes days. But we're in 2025 now, 2026, and the insiders have this. They can take this and make a movie out of it, or a half an hour show, because the tools are obviously right here, right? They're just giving it to us 5 seconds at a time. And right now we have to pay like 19.99, or I think I paid $10 for 700 credits of Sora, right? And then Grok, there's something similar. And then you get results that are unpredictable, right? So it's like, oh, I wasted my time. I have to redo it, right? But in the inside, right, the version that the CEO of AI, of Chat GPT or OpenAI, the tool that they have is that, yes, right now they can put the script into one end of the machine, and then it just hit do it, and then it comes out the other end. Then they do another version of it. All right, well, take this, make it blue. This scene goes on for too long. They'll have an editor, and they hit they hit redo, and it just redoes it. But the tools are right here, right now, and the insiders have it. So, that's the thing that's frustrating to me, is that they're just, um, they're just meeting it out a little bit at a time, so you could buy 5 seconds at a time. And I tried that with my little $10 purchase to make, okay, here's 5 seconds, and then this is going to be what the next sequence is, and the next 5 seconds. Can I put these things together and make, like a 30-second clip? Right here, you can see I was trying to do it with this character, and
Yeah, but
it
that
just
has.
doesn't work. It doesn't. You can't do it. There's
Yeah,
no.
but you're also trying to align it to a story. You're far too intelligent for it. But I also want to disagree with you that all that is available to these imaginary CEOs that love sitting around making content for Netflix for nothing, so they can charge you $9.99 to $17.99 a month, is false. All of this is accessible to us. You just need the hardware. You need the chips. You also need the wherewithal to deal with. This is where it gets really, for me, this is where it really gets down to the separation point. And I was talking to a friend about this last week. Before, well, in the Renaissance, when artists and art was abound, it was not separated from science. There was no separation between the idea of creating something or inventing something. Fast forward 500 years, and all of a sudden you're stuck in a world where scientists are not creative and artists aren't intelligent enough. And that's kind of true in a sense, right? A lot of people I know that are highly technologically advanced. They show me what they're working on creatively and stuff like that. And, I always give, oh, it's really great. It's really great and everything like that. But I could see in their eyes, like they feel like they're light years ahead of, anyhow. The time that it takes to do what you want requires an equal share of artist and science in not only individual, but the individuals that are going to make this content. In other words, there has to be a comprehension of the arts from the scientists, and there needs to be, and vice versa, scientific understanding for the creative. Because the thing that you're poo-pooing in your little 5-second animating a Jack Kirby drawing is that there is no context involved. It's just a moving image. It's cool. It's Kirby, yeah. But there's no context for it to exist outside of that. And then when you and I, because we have history and experience in Flash animation specifically, I know I came across it and depended on you like I depend on you now for your storytelling abilities. And you see through those storytelling ability, those goggles, if you will, and you have a good understanding and appreciation for technology. But I don't believe AI, the programs that you're using and paying for, they're not mapped in your spaghetti and sauce, if you will, meal of a creative output, because the context of a story-driven 10-second image, as well as I do, 10 seconds, you can make a lot happen in an animation and tell a story. But you have to have a lot of control of the elements inside it.
Yeah, so this is kind of converging everything that we've kind of been talking about right now.
Right.
So you're correct that if you want to take a comic book and make it into a movie and just have the machine do all the work, all this work that it's clearly capable of doing, that you have to get into the arms race, of apps and memberships and also like hardware and software, hardware, etc., and money, and you're paying for it.
Yeah.
Well, that's why, just to bring this full circle, why do you think that the Oracle guy now or the Netflix guy, they're buying up these data centers, they're creating these data centers and these cloud centers, and they're also want to buy the Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter and and all of these properties, because now they can do exactly what we're saying. They can take any DC comic and just put it in the machine, come out
Let
with a
them.
thing, and see what's going to sell to another generation. And it's
Sure.
going to be proven stories that are already proven. They're completely tied in. They're well known, and they're going to be able to just do it. And this is only a part of the operation. Like, they're going to take every old movie and re-release them, and fix up the brightness and the color and everything, and then they're going to take all the characters. Like, there's already a Lord of the Rings saga on Netflix right now, right? Or
Sure.
one of those, right? I haven't watched it, but so whoever owns the estate made some deal. I don't think it's a good idea, because I haven't seen it yet, but any, like, TV thing, it just ends up to be talking heads. I think that needs to be movies, but that's just me. But that this is exactly what they're doing. The insider version that they have, and the machines that they have, to do this, like, days and days of rendering. It's way more advanced than anything commercially available. And that's why we're seeing all these mega mergers and all these acquisitions. The poor indie artists here are just going to be working on pen and paper, and we're going to be using Photoshop, and we're going to get tools where we can make a 5-second clip with our character. But the minute you do that, you're also giving them your art to train their computers on, so you're helping them make even more money. So it's just infuriating, but it's also, business capitalism. It's also, the race for ideas and competition. So we benefit, as just like, kind of like, as little fishes, going down the stream of like, modern technology, innovation, and scientific advancement. But at the same time, the concentrated wealth and the concentrated power, it just has this ability to concentrate it even further, right? So you're not going to see 100,000 indie creators creating great stuff for 100 million different audiences. You're going to see 5 companies, making all this content for the 100 million people, and the
Good.
indie.
Let them. Let them. Here's a question for you, Jake.
Yeah.
Do you believe you are? Um, let me. Do you deserve credit as a creative person because you create?
In an ideal situation, the artist that creates it will get credit for creating it. Yeah,
Are
that's
you are
copyright
you
law.
creating? Are you creating Turbo Pit Fighter to be recognized as the creator of Turbo Pit Fighter?
No, I'm more concerned in people knowing who Turbo Pit Fighter is than I'm concerned with them knowing who
Why is
Jake
that?
is.
Why is that?
Because I do art for art's sake, number one, and
Okay.
it's nice to be able to pay your bills and live your life and die and be happy. But I get more kick out of the idea of people 100 years from now picking up Turbo Pit Fighter comic and
Right.
saying, "Hey, this was
Right.
happening in 2025. This is cool."
Right.
And I don't know what the possibilities are. I might die, and it might just completely be undiscovered. And
Well, that's impossible now because we have 186 episodes alone of making Turbo Pit Fighter. You know what I mean? Without actually having finished the first episode. I think
Yeah,
it's
but it's not like
we're
YouTube. It's not like YouTube is serving them up to people as soon as they log on to a landing screen. They
some
have to
people
hit
if they
something.
if they're following us. Our just to share some of our analytics, we have over 1,600 people following us. Our shorts that I've been putting up because I'm clipping them out of Riverside with this. It's called Magic Clip. Get over 1,000 views. Now
Yeah.
that's pretty good. Like some of them, like we had one to go to 14 and 1,500 views.
Right.
That's pretty good because that's also saying the people who have honestly clicked the subscribe button or follow button, whatever it's called, um, are legitimately interested in who we are and what we're doing. Now they're not emotionally tied to like, oh shit, it's Sunday 10 o'clock in the morning. Not 1,600 people. You got to be realistic about it. But
No,
right now we're showing about a dozen people at some point between 10 and it's 20 right now. And we've been going 2.5 hours. 20 people have come in, and the average duration that they've spent with us is 30 minutes, 32
wow.
minutes.
Yeah.
That is
They must be clipping their toenails.
now I'm going to throw a word in. That's cool. Now all we have to do is scalability. That's the big thing nowadays, is how do you scale it? Now, to go back to your whole, there's only like 2 or 3 media companies that will be owning all of the stuff that we grew up on. They still have the same problem of getting people to um, uh, come to that. Let's say that franchise, right? That Star Wars. Like, I don't know. I'm reading and seeing a lot about how, especially DC is just it's just dying on the vein, and so like a vine, it's going to be really interesting to see how they handle comics over the years, coming with the characters being held in copyright, towards them just basically pushing everything in on the animation and live action storytelling mechanisms that they do control. That they not only control, they want input and some kind of scalability on.
Yeah, well, that was something I learned when Disney bought Marvel, and a couple years in, I saw a financial report, some Financial Times or Fortune or Forbes or whatever, and they were saying that Disney had a unique ability to monetize these Marvel characters, and they were doing a better job of it than Marvel was in terms of making money. And you wonder if Marvel, all those years that they just kind of like toiled away in print, maybe your best title sells 100,000 and your lowest title sells 5,000, whether they even cared or they were just muddying through. But then when they got acquired by like Toy Biz and all these Wall Street companies, then they were like, no, if Thor isn't making money, then it's opportunity lost, and we've got to make money. And so they did an amazing job of that. You have to admit, like, to imagine that the Guardians of the Galaxy has a two episode blockbuster, hundreds of millions of dollars budget, and I don't know, tens of millions in profits, I imagine. With throwaway characters that that they struck gold, and we complain about them, but because at some point it gets old, and at some point there's like there's fatigue, and how many Thor movies are going to make? Like 20? Are you going to space it out? Like, is anything new going to happen? But that's Disney's challenge. And it's not like they incorporated, Mickey Mouse and Spider-Man. Like they keep it separate, to an extent. You have what's his name? Kevin Feige, whatever that guy's name is, running the show. And he's had some stinkers, right? So they're hitting reality, but they've never seen like Hollywood has never seen anything like the Avengers before. The Avengers Endgame.
Right.
Never.
Yeah,
It's $1 billion movie.
Yeah.
Nobody ever grossed $1 billion with a superhero movie before.
Or any movie.
Right. And
Or
you still,
wasn't the Titanic the close up, and it was like even
Yeah,
wasn't even
the best grossing single picture of all time was the Titanic, and which was James Cameron of the Terminator fame, and then he eclipsed his own record with the first Avatar.
right,
And
right.
I'm not sure what it is now, but those at the time were the number one movies in their day. The Titanic, and then Avatar, and then the Terminator series is on like the seventh episode right now, and I think they're all fantastic. I think they're great. I think they do a great job of combining action and the idea of Skynet and the sci-fi stuff. A little bit of thrill. I mean, a couple of them have had some pretty shitty special effects in some places, but I think the last one was pretty good, and I've seen some that I really like, especially the first and second one were really huge. Anyway, um, there's these big creators, and once you have something like that under your belt, you can get things green lighted that nobody else can get green lighted, and so I have to admire James Cameron. Um, just as a creative, he's kind of like a Walt Disney type,
I was thinking the
because
same thing.
he's a visionary,
Yeah.
and he created this Avatar world, and they're just now releasing the third one. The planet of Pandora and all these characters and reimagining all these natural designs, right? He's got all these like hybrid animals that no one ever thought of that are just beautiful. They're gorgeous eye candy, things. And I even have a worksheet when I'm absent sometimes, because they put me on a field trip and I have to leave some work for my other classes. I have this one sheet that says, "You've just been, put in charge of the next Avatar movie, and your job is to combine some elements of animals that exist into a new animal." And I give like an example on the sheet, and then there's just like a big blank section on the sheet where they're supposed to like do it. And most kids is like, all right, they struggle with it, but there's some creative kids that, all right, let's make an animal for Pandora, or a monster, a creature, whatever. And so I really admire him. He says, "Oh yeah, don't worry about that black and white right there. We're gonna be taking that black and white out, and we're gonna be putting in the Duke in there." But James Cameron took it upon himself to say, I'm not just going to create another movie, or even a franchise. I'm going to create a world and an idea. And he's got this whole thing about the
Yeah, but
corporate.
in propriety, he owns the way he's making this movie. That's the crazier. If anything, he's way more like George Lucas was with Industrial Light and Magic
Yeah,
Studio.
right.
Because the thing is that he could be making up into the billions for the Avatar, but he's probably making 10 times on top of that for other studios wanting to have either licensing or his people be able to
Yeah,
create the same
His CGI
CGI, the
methodology.
sound, the scape, the all the stuff, the cameras, all that kind of stuff. And that's true creative science. That's why he's so successful, is because he doesn't delineate between, making a movie and inventing the equipment in order to make the movie. Like, I can't remember. I know I just watched something and they were talking about what's that, VistaVision, the cameras, like there's like the cameras and the projectors and all this da 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 da. Well, I mean, Quentin Tarantino for the Hateful Eight, basically spent his money reviving not only the camera to be able to shoot these films and the film and the processing and stuff, but the projectors, and then bought a movie theater to be able to house the projector, and now has the same. The projectors are now in Boston, New York, LA, and
Yeah,
London. So it rivals, the person was saying that it rivals IMAX in a lot of ways, but it's, you know, and so like I think that's the sweet spot if you're a creative person that wants to feel like you have sustainability, is lean into the scientific stuff when you have problems, or you have like, I don't know how to quite figure out how to, like, lean into it. As long as you're getting your shit done and it's getting out there, like, do it. Don't be afraid of it. It's fine. It's gonna be fine. And you know, just move from there. I can't
Yeah,
really
you
go
got
any.
the example of George Lucas when they were figuring out how to make the special effects, and they didn't want to rely on the old green screen and all that. So they said, we're going to make it digital. They actually purchased a company called RenderMan, which was developed by this guy who was just like a software teacher at New York Institute of Technology in New York City. And you know, this was the days of the brown screen computers and the green screen computers. And you know, the Star Wars, what they needed to do was they had teams in New York, or teams in America and teams in Britain that were frame by frame, just kind of like crunching these images, because it was one of the first digitally rendered sci-fi things. And so they took that product, RenderMan 3D, and they started packaging it, selling it to you know, other makers. But that's what eventually you know, that technology, you know, the whole thing also got bought by Steve Jobs of Apple, and it got turned into Pixar. That's what the origins of it was. It was Lucasfilms bankrolling this guy that had this product called RenderMan, and that eventually turned into the Pixar technology. And along with the first Pixar movie, Toy Story. Well, actually, there was the little lamp.
Lamp. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
the
was, I've
jump.
heard that was a testing of it, which
Yeah,
was
that was
a pre film. Like, you would see that little
it was a
short
demo.
vignette
Yeah, it was
before movies for a
yeah, it was a
summer.
short that was a demo of 3D animation and what it would become. And they had plenty of customers for that. I'm not sure, because you know, there was other studios. You know, Pixar, you know, at the same time they were developing this technology, they took full advantage of it, and they went into a partnership with Disney, a distribution partnership. Remember, Pixar now at this point, it's half owned by Apple and half owned by Disney, right? And they're not only selling, I guess, like, you know, what amounts to subscriptions to Renderman to other studios, but they're also capitalizing on it with the release of Toy Story 1. Now, if you remember around that time, they had a competing movie in 3D animation that came out right around the same time called Bugs Life. And you know, it's great to see you know, studios competing, but I'm not sure that they were using any kind of a different platform to create Bugs Life. I'm wondering right now if they licensed, you know, the Pixar tool, you know, which was based on RenderMan, but it was, you know,
Maybe,
yeah,
maybe
because
somebody knew somebody.
right, because at that point, you have Pixar making money off their competitors too, and you know, and maybe they decide to charge based on a back end, you know, like you know, a percentage. You know, I don't know how those kind of things are structured. Is there a one-time fee? Do you pay by the month? Do you pay by the hour? You know, or do you pay by the ticket sale? Who knows? So those are all really interesting, you know, questions about how big production deals are financed. And I know there's a lot, you know, it gets into a lot of different you know, complicated avenues, because you know, Disney was only, I think, partnering for the, you know, like movie by movie, and then they had to kind of like renegotiate. I think they were just in at the beginning as a distribution partner, but what happened was when Steve Jobs died, his widow, Laureen Powell Jobs, inherited the the single largest share of Disney stock, even though her husband was more on the Apple side. It was because of the Pixar partnership that she owned so much Disney stock that nobody else had a larger no other single entity had a larger share, at least at the time. And I don't know if that means, she has some kind of like, say at the shareholders meeting and, in the direction of the company or whatever. But, you know, and I don't remember what percentage it was either, but it was an interesting story to that. And so, if anybody wants more information, just Google it. But, a lot of this, a lot of this really interesting backstory stuff affects what we end up seeing on the screen. And, I've said it many times, Kurt, I think that there is a real lack of great 2D animation.
I agree with you 100,000,000%.
And that, and that maybe if, you have some now AI capability where a company like Disney wants to just, put a comic book in one end of the machine and then press the button and then come out with a cartoon, I would sign up to see it if it's in the style of the artist, and if it's, and if it really, really honors the the original. You would definitely have a fan in me and every other Marvel mark like me out there, that would just be your built-in audience. But I don't know, if the powers that be see, the same money-making opportunity, with us old timers
No,
versus
they don't.
what they could be doing
They
of
don't
a
know.
short
They have,
attention
they have
span
no. Yeah.
generation.
Fuck the Gen Xers.
Well, you say that, but that's who Disney is catering to. So, and Disney, Warner Brothers, all these companies. So we have our little indie, um, our little lily pad that we dwell on, or and we make our stuff. But we talk about the mainstream, the big biz, and changes
Oh,
in
there's
society.
animation in Turbo's future. Hands
Yeah,
down. They're
there's got to
hands
be.
down, people. When
I
it
got.
happens, it's gonna. I'm actually, just so people know, steering Jake away from it right now because we got to get a comic book done. And it kills me to do this, to Jake, is to calm him down about, utilizing these tools, and we have the same language and we can see the same results if we put our time and energy in it. But we only have 3 hours every Sunday from 10 to 1, which we're rounding the corner to 1 o'clock
Yeah.
today. And, that's our reality right now, but it doesn't mean things are going to be this way all the time. So,
We have
and
no idea what the future holds, but I
animation
think,
is a part of it. I'll tell you that.
yeah, I mean, in showbiz,
two
timing is
D 2D animation, just so
3D animation.
everybody's clear.
There's been so many great scripts that fell into the right hands at the right time, and ended up being something. You look at Men in Black and The Mask and all the big budget, the Men in Black, all the big budget properties that came from nowhere, nothing, indie comic like The Crow, scene. So it's all about timing and a little bit of luck, and but our job is to make Turbo number one, so we can show people what it
Well,
looks like.
we want to get Turbo done. That's
That's what
that's
we
the
got to do.
biggest. That's the biggest thing we want to get
Yeah,
accomplished. And,
there's just talk and then there's action. So we
yeah,
gotta
but
we gotta
let's just. This is episode 186. Um, and I'm finishing my blue liquid masking right now on page 11.
mhm.
So I will be spending some time this week outside of Sunday to push these pages a little bit further in having something um, uh, presentable in the way of like getting closer to done on these pages next week. So I'm thoroughly happy with how our progress is going, even having taken last Sunday off, which I think was a very positive thing for both of us to do. I feel really great. And can I do my Crom promo?
Please.
Okay.
Yep.
So I just once again have to thank everybody who supported Crom Anthology #1. I sold 33 copies out of the 100 that I was promoting, which, by the way, this is a $35 book, 256 pages. I did put a discount on it. It's still discounted right now, and they're still selling right now. Thoroughly happy with how everything went. There's so many little details that I'll be talking about in the next week or two on the Crom the Barbarian YouTube channel.
Got mine right here.
My Crom update. Do you have your copy there?
Got mine right here in a Gemini mailer, right? Or whatever.
Nice. Yes. I sent you a copy because I'm going to want to have you, just throw some stuff back at me at some point in the way of feedback. But and the biggest accomplishment I feel with this is the response from, like I said earlier in the episode, individuals who love this genre, specifically sword and sorcery comic books, spanning out of, Conan the Barbarian out of Marvel Comics from 1969 on, Savage Sword of Conan, and that's my heart. This is 8.5 by 11 magazine size, 256 pages, black and white, and it's just it's great. And by the time the first week of January hits, and I start doing a lot of announcements for Crom Anthology #2, I'll tell you right now, I will probably have close to 100 pages in motion to being completed for Crom Anthology #2. I'm also planning on having Crom Anthology #3 up and moving the second half of the year. So there's a chance that there'll be 2 Crom anthologies coming out a year. Definitely one, and the #3 being very much in the works and everything. But cannot thank everybody that was involved, not only in purchasing this. I had a lot of individuals give me shout outs through social media, Instagram, YouTube. So just thank you. And if you want to join the community over at cromthebarbarian.com, and you can either purchase something and be signed up for the newsletter, or just go ahead and sign yourself into the newsletter, because the majority of that information that's going on is shared directly through the website and that newsletter. So don't depend on social media to get your awareness of what's going on with Crom Anthology and all the wonderful artists that have contributed and some of the stuff I brought back matter out of things. So very, very excited. So thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, and if you're a creator and you want to do a barbarian piece, go ahead and submit it to Kurt and see if he can get it in an upcoming edition of the Crom Anthology. Why not?
Why not is right.
Why not get your inner barbarian out?
Exactly.
All right, so folks, if you're listening here on Sunday, join us next Sunday around 10 a.m. We're doing a live stream next week and the week after. I'm on page 11, so I just got some progress done. But come on back and bring your artwork, and make sure you're drawing stuff too, creating stuff. We love it. You can check out our other channels. We also have a flip through channel with over 50 episodes called Comics That Influence on our YouTube landing page. You can see, and we do creator interviews, which we have a couple teed up for the new year coming up. And Kurt will give you more information on that in the very near future. So see you next Sunday, Kurt. And folks, go to cromthebarbarian.com if you want to order up one of those graphic novel anthologies, Crom the Barbarian. Right on.
All right, Jake, I'll see you next Sunday.
See you, man.